I never thought this day would come. I tried to shrug it off, I tried to ignore it as long as I could, but here we are. Salut les amis et bienvenue encore une fois sur ma chaîne YouTube. Aujourd'hui, on va parler d'un thème un peu polémique. Et ce thème, c'est l'intelligence artificielle. Qu'est-ce que c'est et comment peut-on l'utiliser pour notre apprentissage de langue? Psych, this video is gonna be in English, but I had you there for a second, didn't I? Welcome to the real world, baby. Just kidding. Let me just cut to the chase. In this video, I'm gonna be talking primarily about ChatGPT as a language learning tool. Basically, when people talk about AI these days, they're mostly talking about ChatGPT. It's like the biggest tool out there right now for a lot of different things. I'm seeing it implemented in so many different domains in so many different realms. I think there's already a couple videos on language YouTube about AI and ChatGPT and language learning, but I have not watched any videos yet. I'm actually going to do that after this just to see if my kind of assumptions were correct. So if I repeat any ideas that anybody's already said, no, I didn't. Okay. Everything that comes out of my mouth is original, even if I don't know it.
I have good ideas. Direct marketing. I thought of that. Turned out it already existed, but I arrived at it independently.
Crazy. The world changes overnight. Shall we? So artificial intelligence is intelligence demonstrated by machines as opposed to intelligence displayed by humans. I could have come up with that. Let's look up more specifically. What is ChatGPT? According to ZDNet.com, ChatGPT is a natural language processing tool driven by AI technology that allows you to have human-like conversations and much more with a chatbot. You remember in elementary school when you had to do an assignment, invent something, and everybody was just inventing a robot, and they were like, oh, it can do your homework for you, it can carry your books. This is that. I feel like ChatGPT is that little robot that we were all yearning for as a child. He's here. But first, before we talk about AI and all that it can do for your language learning, let's talk about what it can't do for your language learning, which is give you real-world first-hand experience with native speakers in your target language. And you know who does exactly that? italki, who is the sponsor of this video. Ooh, see how I did that? italki is an online language learning platform where you can take face-to-face lessons with native speakers in over 150 languages, and also just connect with language learners all over the world. I've been using italki for literal years. I'm 23 and I started using it when I was 16, so me and her, we go way back. And not just as a student, also as a teacher, because I used to teach English on there when I was in college, actually. So I know the platform very well at this point, and just speaking very frankly, it's still my go-to. Even after all these years, if I really need to do some heavy lifting in my target language, I'm going to italki. Because, you can take all the time in the world to read, to write in a language, to listen, but you can, talking face-to-face with a native speaker, you can't fake that. And that, for me, is, the most concrete way to feel like I'm really progressing in a language. So that's why it's just my favorite experience. I would say that using italki to improve my speaking skills over the years is what has helped me improve most in the long run, but that's just me. You can use italki for a ton of different things. You can find teachers that specialize in reading comprehension, in test prep, and pronunciation, so many different things. In fact, most recently I was using italki to prep for my DELF C1 exam because I was really nervous for the speaking, the oral production part, so here's how that went.
Madame.
Le transport, en fait, quelque chose qu'on voit de plus en plus, c'est l'implémentation de la circulation alternée. Donc, par exemple, si le plaque d'immatriculation commence avec le numéro 3, on ne peut pas conduire le lundi et le mercredi.
Yeah. I think what I love most about italki is how it just gets rid of all the excuses that people always use that they can't practice with native speakers. They're like, oh, I don't have enough time to take language lessons. Not anymore. You can take lessons anytime, anywhere. It's all online, and teachers teach from all around the world, so there's always somebody that you can practice with. I've never been in the situation where I've not been able to find a tutor to accommodate my time frame that I want, the kind of class that I want. It's very, very customizable. Another excuse, language classes are too expensive. Boom. Not anymore. The pricing starts at just $5 per class, and furthermore, the teachers, they make their own prices, so there's something for everybody's budget. And another excuse I hear is I just don't want another commitment. I don't want another subscription. Well, with italki, there's no subscriptions, there's no memberships, there's no regular payments. It's pay per lesson, so you can just pay for the classes you want and that's it, no strings attached. And lastly, even if you're not taking classes on italki, it can still be to your advantage because they have this thing called the community tab. It's kind of like a forum style thing where you can interact with not just native speakers, but also other people that are learning the same languages as you. You know, you can make posts in any language you want, you could write a diary entry, you can ask questions, you can get corrections. It's super interactive, and it's also a great way to meet new tutors. So, you know, the italki experience is very all-in-one. You know, you can take your lessons and then you can head over to the community tab to practice what you learned. I think that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna leave a link down in the description for those who want to start or continue their language learning journey on italki, because let's be real, why wouldn't you? Also, if you buy $10 worth of credits on italki, if you use my code Elise, you can get an extra $5 for free, so there's that. But only the first 50 people can get access to that, so hop to it. Okay, where was I? Ah yes, AI. So one thing you can do to use ChatGPT to your advantage when you're starting off in a language is using it to find resources. The resource hunt is so real, okay? It can be really, really difficult, especially at the beginning when you're just getting into a language, to find stuff that works for you. It's catered to your experience. And, you know, with ChatGPT, you can get really, really specific. So, for example, hey ChatGPT, what are some good beginner resources for learning German? And there's some here that I kind of wouldn't recommend, but, you know, you don't have to take every single suggestion that it comes up with. Like, for example, I wouldn't go for Duolingo personally, but, you know, Deutsche Welle, Goethe-Institut, these are like, you know, resources that are specific to German and really, really good. You know, and you can also use this at different levels. So if you're like at a B2, if you want some resources that are more specific to your level, you can always get more specific with ChatGPT and be like, actually, I want it for this. Or like, you know, can I get resources specifically for listening or for writing? You know, let's test that out. Let's see what she comes up with. And yes, ChatGPT is a girl. Well, look at number 4, if it isn't the sponsor of today's video. So yeah, this is great. It's catered not only to the B2 level, but also a specific skill, which is listening. And I actually recognize, you know, a lot of these resources. Like I literally was listening to the Auf Deutsch gesagt podcast yesterday, so that's legit. Moving on, another way you can implement ChatGPT into your language learning routine is to ask for a language learning routine. Think of it like a language mentor. You know, you can ask a really, really specific question and it'll just suggest things for you. Like I just asked it, hey ChatGPT, I need a new language learning routine for French because I just took the C1 DOF exam. Basically saying like, you know, I just took this exam. I'm going to study other languages, but I don't want to lose my progress. So what should I do? So this is great for me in my specific case. Like these are some low maintenance activities just to kind of like keep contact with French. But you can personalize this to whatever your specific situation and your target language is. So if you just hit the intermediate plateau and you need like, you know, some high vigor activities to kind of like, you know, kick you back into shape. If you have a specific goal, like if you want to improve specifically your pronunciation, you can ask for some routine or like activity tips for that specific goal. So it can really be whatever, you know, is most true to you in your case. I also just asked some concrete study activities I should do to reach B1 in Turkish by the end of the year, since that's a whole different case. I kind of just wanted to see what, you know, she'd say. And these are great tips, you know, focus on a specific grammar topic each week, you know, transcribe short audio clips. Like this is really good and it's comprehensive to like all the different skills. So if you need some ideas about how to spice up your routine, do not hesitate to ask ChatGPT. Next, let's talk about vocab, right? There's endless, countless things you could do to practice vocab with ChatGPT, but these are just a few. When you learn a new word, you can ask for like a full explanation on the word, especially if, you know, it's something you've never seen before. You can ask about its etymology. If it's like kind of a really nuanced, specific word, you can ask for a nuanced explanation. You know, ask specific questions about its usage. Ask how it's used in a sentence in context. So I'm going to ask how the word aufrechterhalten is used in German, and I said explain its meaning and give me 3 examples in context at a B2 level. So aufrechterhalten basically just means to maintain in German, and it gives the short explanation of the different parts of the word. It mentions that it's a compound verb in German, which it goes specific to the language, so that's great. Keep in mind, this is great for when you first encounter a word. Like if you really want to cement a word into your mind, if you get some background on it and some examples, as soon as you learn it, it'll probably stay with you for longer. And another thing is that you can ask for synonyms for words that you already know. I think this is really important when you get to the higher levels of a language, and it's really necessary to know how to express yourself in different ways and not just repeat yourself all the time. So if I asked ChatGPT for Three synonyms for the word aufrechterhalten. We have bewahren, erhalten, and fortsetzen. A little more on vocab. So if you're learning vocabulary in a specific topic and you want to kind of like, get into that niche a little bit more or learn words specific to a specific domain, ask ChatGPT. So I just asked, I'm learning about fast fashion in French as it relates to the environment. What are 10 vocab words that I should know? And please provide example sentences. And this is great, la mode rapide, l'industrie textile, la durabilité. So if you know that there's a specific topic that you should learn more about, if there's, a hole in your vocab that you need to fill, just ask for some words and ask for some sentences in context and say them out loud so that you yourself can get experience with them. So moving on, if you are a person that wants to learn a specific dialect in a language, I know that I always come back to this, I always talk about this, but I really love the concept of learning a specific dialect in a language, right? So I just asked ChatGPT how a Spaniard versus a Venezuelan would say this specific sentence. He's mad because he left his jacket at home. And this is a really, really interesting answer. For the most part, the sentences are the same, like está enfadado porque se dejó la chaqueta en casa. Está molesto porque dejó la chaqueta en casa. So there's only two differences here, the word for annoyed, which is enfadado versus molesto. And I also notice a difference in the verb. So in Spain Spanish, se dejó la chaqueta versus in Venezuela, dejó la chaqueta. So it's reflexive in one, but not in the other. So, that's super interesting. You can, keep inquiring towards that and being like, oh, well, why do they use this verb that way? Or like, where does this word come from? Why do they say this? Why do they say that? And while, it is really best at the end of the day to get to know dialects through interacting directly with people from specific countries that you might want to learn the dialects from, this could be a really cool way to just kind of discover, If we ask about Portuguese, I just asked what's the difference between Portuguese from Brazil and Portugal. And it's really, really comprehensive, like the pronunciation, the different pronouns that they use, the grammar, it's really cool. So if you're looking to dip your toes into studying a specific dialect in a language, I feel like ChatGPT is a really, really cool way to do that, like initial research before you dive into a specific one. So next, I know that I said earlier that you can't really interact with native speakers through AI, and that's true because at the end of the day, it is a computer, but you can tell it to act like a human. So the thing is, you can use it like a conversation partner, kind of to just shoot the shit, ask it questions, get it to ask you questions. So I just asked, act like a native Brazilian Portuguese speaker and ask me some questions at a B2 level. Also, I'm asking it to correct me if I say something wrong, because, why not? Como é o clima onde você mora? These are not at a B2 level, I feel like. These are not talking about the weather, or like what I like to read. I feel like that's not B2. Okay, let's respond to one, and then ask for corrections. Meu prato de comida favorito, shakshuka. Guiço? How do you say stew in Portuguese? Guiço de tomate. Oh, wow, there's actually a lot of words I don't know how to say in Portuguese. This is disturbing. Me realizing that I don't have a B2 level at all. My last name is Portuguese. I get a pass. Okay, it's Oriente Médio. That's how you say Middle East. So that's a cool response, but I still am unsure about my answer. So you can always ask follow-up. So I'm going to ask, how do you say stew in Brazilian Portuguese? Guisado. Okay. Quase cheguei. No. I feel like this solves a couple of different problems surrounding language partners, because I feel like, sometimes I won't ask all the questions that I want because I'm scared I'm gonna annoy them, or they just won't know the answer, because sometimes native speakers, they just don't understand their language to a deep, deep level, but this is a wealth of knowledge. Moving on, let's talk about grammar. I know that nobody likes to talk about grammar. It's a triggering topic, but you know who does love to talk about grammar? ChatGPT. I just asked it, what's the difference between the imperfect and preterite tenses in Spanish? Because that's an eternal struggle for a lot of people. Breaks it down very clearly, gives you some examples. This is a really good way to just get new knowledge and exercise it in the same place. If we're asking it something about grammar, let's ask it something about German. Let's get crazy right now. Let's ask about declensions. I feel like if you're studying a language that has different grammatical cases, this is really, really useful to maybe get to know them better, see them in context. So I said, give me example sentences of the word enttäuscht in German, which means disappointed, in all 4 grammatical cases. Also, Nominativ, sie ist enttäuscht von dem Ergebnis. Akkusativ, ich sehe den enttäuschten Blick in seinen Augen. Dativ, er gibt seiner Schwester einen enttäuschten Blick. Und Genitiv, also es ist Enttäuschung, weil es ein Substantiv ist. Die Freude ihres Erfolgs war größer als die Enttäuschung seines Scheiterns. So in summation, right? Not to sound like a fucking boomer or anything, but back in my day, we did not have this shit. This is amazing. No, but on a serious note, like this is a wealth of knowledge. It's an encyclopedia. It's a search engine. It's a person that you can practice with, basically. It satisfies so many needs in the language learning process, and I feel like, you know, at this point, you'd be a fool not to take advantage of it, at least in some measure, because it's so flexible, it's so customizable, and it's free. These new age language learners, they have it so easy. All right, I don't want to hear from y'all. What do you think? And have you been implementing ChatGPT into your language learning process in any way? I would love to know. I would love to hear, you know, even more ways that you guys are experimenting with it for your language learning process. So leave me a comment down below. Let me know. See you next time. A bientôt. Görüşürüz. Bis zum nächsten Mal. Até mais. Hasta la próxima. Nos vemos. Bye. Whew, that was a doozy.